Hello. Welcome to session 2 of the book of Esther. When we left the book of Esther last time, we looked at verses 1 through 12 of chapter 1 in the book of Esther, and we saw that King Ahasuerus was extremely angry with Queen Vashti because she refused to come and to present herself before the people. King Ahasuerus was having a banquet, and he was showing people how important. He was showing them his power, his prestige, his honor, and he just wanted them to honor him. And what we're going to see is when Queen Vashti said, "I will not come," she refused to come and present herself before the people. Then King Ahasuerus chose to respond in a way that we should respond today. He did not rush into a hasty decision. He did not act out of emotion, out of anger. We're going to see that he called his advisors together. He wanted to know what the law had to say. So we're going to hopefully learn from his response to a difficult and trying situation. Just as we have a difficult and trying situation, we don't need to respond in anger. How do we respond? We are still. And we know that He is God. And we trust the sovereignty of God to get us through difficult and trying times. We're going to pick this up in Esther chapter 1, starting in verse 13. God's Word says, "Then the king said to the wise men who understood the times, for there was the king's manner towards all who knew the law and justice, those closest to him, being Carshena, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Mares, Marsena, and Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, who had access to the king's presence, and who ranked highest in the kingdom. What shall we do to Queen Vashti according to the law? Because she did not obey the command of King Ahasuerus brought to her by the eunuchs." And Memucan answered before the king and the princes, "Queen Vashti has not only wronged the king, but also all the princes and all the people who are in the provinces of King Ahasuerus. For the queen's behavior will become known to all women, so that they will despise their husbands in their eyes when they hear the report. King Ahasuerus commanded Queen Vashti to be brought in before him, but she did not come. This very day the noble ladies of Persia and Media will say to all the king's officials that they have heard of the behavior of the queen. Thus there will be excessive contempt and wrath. If it pleases the king, let a royal decree go out from him, and let it be recorded in the laws of the Persians and the Medes, so that it will not be altered, that Vashti shall come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal position to another who is better than she. When the king's decree which he will make is proclaimed throughout all his empire, for it is great, all wives will honor their husbands, both great and small." And the reply pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Memucan. Then he sent letters to all the king's provinces, to each province in his own script, and to each people in their own language, that every man should be master in his own house, and speak in the language of his own people. Well, what we see that in the book of Esther, we see that the king first is angry. His anger burned within him. He did not know what to do. This reminds me of a great man that I heard at a pastor's convention one time. He said this: when you don't know what to do, do what you know to do until you know to do what to do. So what happened was the king, even though he was angry, he did not act in haste. He left the judgment and the punishment up to the law and up to the advisors. he acted in a way that actually was positive. He wanted to do what was right. He said, "What does the law say should be done to Queen Vashti? Since she refused to come before the king, since she refused to show herself and chose to disobey the command of the king." Well, the interesting part about this is the officials, the wise men, his advisors, never answered what the law had to say. They gave their opinion, which gives us a very important point that we need to remember. We cannot allow the opinion of man, the opinion of anyone, how close or how much we want it to be, to outweigh the rule and law of God. See, the king wanted to do what was right. Now notice in verse 15 it says, "What shall we do to the queen?" He went to advisors. And going to advisors is good. Going to godly advisors is not a bad thing. But going to godly advisors, no matter how godly they are, if they do not respond according to God's word, we must choose to follow God regardless. Follow Him and Him alone. Period. No one, nothing else. Now, he never heard what the law had to say. What he heard was that, well, if she gets by with this, then the women of the land are going to continue to disrespect their husbands. If you allow this, then it's going to continue. So they gave him advice. He didn't respond in anger. He didn't actually kill her. He didn't imprison her. He just said, "You will no longer appear before me, and you will be stripped of your position, and I will find someone new." So, what happened was the public shame of losing that position would be her punishment. But a king could not expect the people to follow if the queen didn't follow. So, what he did was good in his eyes. It was good in the eyes of the people. It was not a bad decision, but he never did hear what the law had to say. For Queen Vashti, we can see and know and hear and understand that our actions affect those around us. Our actions affect the people around us. It wasn't just her that it affected, it was the other women. The decree had to be made so that the other women would respect their husbands. Well, we, like King Ahasuerus, we must follow God's law and the law of our land. The law of this nation. We must choose to do what is right in God's eyes and in the eyes of our national leaders, our nation. We must do what's best for our country. Right now we're told we cannot meet. See, we need to understand we cannot meet because the pandemic could spread. The virus could spread. It spreads so rapidly. We must think of the lives of others. We must put others' lives before our own. We must also pray for and submit to our leaders. Pray for our leaders. You don't know what to do? Pray for your leader. Don't respond in anger. Don't respond in throwing up your hands in frustration. Don't respond by saying, I just don't know what to do. Well, life changes quite rapidly. We've seen that over the last few weeks. 2-3 weeks ago, we could worship God together corporately. Now we cannot. 2 or 3 weeks ago, we could go to restaurants. We could be in school. We could be with others. Right now, we cannot. We must obey and respect our leaders. But we must pray for them. We must ask God to give them wisdom and guidance and direction. In fact, in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 and 2, it says this: "Therefore I exhort, first of all, that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings and all who are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceful life in all godliness and reverence." We must pray for our leaders. We must see and know and understand that God is still in control. He has a plan. He knows what He's going to do. Right now, we may be scattered. We may not be able to meet corporately. We may not be able to worship the way you're used to. However, God's still on His throne. We must focus on Him during this difficulty. We must remember that life can change in an instant. We must remember that God is perfect and He is in control. Let's trust God through challenging times. Let's trust God through difficulty. I look forward to what we're going to learn next time in the book of Esther. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.